I want to tell you about something that happened to me a few years ago. It still gives me chills to think about, and honestly, it made me question a lot of things. It started when we moved into this new apartment. A fresh start, we thought. Little did we know what was waiting. This isn't some campfire story. This is something that really happened. Something that messed with the sense of security I had, especially when it came to my child. It involves a baby monitor, something we bought to give us peace of mind. Instead, it became the source of a fear I wouldn't wish on anyone. When we had Leo, our first baby, it was the most amazing, overwhelming experience. You know how it is, suddenly your whole world revolves around this tiny human. Sleep became a luxury, and every little whimper or sigh had us jumping up. Like most new parents, we wanted to do everything right, make sure he was safe, even when he was sleeping in his own room. So, we got one of those electronic baby monitors. It had a camera, two-way audio, the whole works. It seemed perfect. For the first few weeks, it was exactly what we needed. We could see him breathing, hear his little noises. It was reassuring, knowing we could keep an eye on him without hovering over his crib every 5 minutes. But then, things started to get weird. It started subtly. I'd be in the living room, maybe watching TV, and I'd hear these faint sounds coming from the monitor. At first, I thought it was just static, or maybe the neighbors. But it sounded almost like whispering. I couldn't make out any words, just a low, indistinct murmur. I mentioned it to my husband, Mark, but he didn't hear anything. He said I was probably just tired imagining things. And maybe I was. New parenthood does crazy things to your brain. So I tried to brush it off. But it kept happening. The whispers would come and go, sometimes when Leo was completely silent. It started to make me uneasy. I'd turn up the volume on the monitor, trying to decipher what it was. But it was always just below the threshold of understanding. It was like someone was just on the edge of speaking. Then one night, it was different. I was up late, feeding Leo around 3 a.m. After I put him back in his crib, I went back to bed. But I left the monitor on beside me as usual. Everything was quiet for a while, and then I heard it. It was still a whisper, but this time it sounded clearer, closer. It sent a shiver down my spine. The voice, and it definitely sounded like a voice this time, said very softly, "You shouldn't have left him alone." My blood ran cold. I sat bolt upright in bed, my heart pounding in my chest. I looked at the monitor screen, and Leo was there, sleeping peacefully. But the voice, it had sounded so real, so close. It was like someone was right there in his room. I didn't hesitate. I jumped out of bed and ran to his room, my legs shaky. I flicked on the light, expecting I don't even know what. But Leo was just sleeping, soundly, his little chest rising and falling. There was no one else in the room. The window was closed. Everything seemed normal. I went back to our bedroom, still shaking. I looked at the baby monitor, sitting innocently on the nightstand. I didn't want to touch it, but I felt like I had to. I picked it up, my hand trembling, and turned up the volume. Silence. Just the faint white noise you usually hear. For the next few nights, I was on edge. I barely slept, constantly checking on Leo, listening intently to the monitor. The whispers didn't come back. I started to think maybe it had been a one-off, a fluke. Maybe Mark was right and I was just exhausted. Then, about a week later, it happened again. I was in the kitchen, making breakfast. Leo was napping. Suddenly, I heard a sound from the monitor, not a whisper this time. It was a distinct, low chuckle, a male chuckle. My blood ran cold. I froze, my hand clutching the counter. My stomach dropped. This wasn't static. This wasn't my imagination. Something was making noises through the baby monitor. I ran to Leo's room. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it in my ears. He was still asleep. I scanned the room. Every shadow made me jump. Nothing. I was frantic, confused. This time I knew I wasn't imagining it. I ran back to the kitchen, needing to see the monitor to understand what was happening. But when I got back, the monitor wasn't on the counter anymore. It was on the floor. The screen completely shattered. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't dropped it. Then I screamed for Mark. He came running, his face filled with concern, but before he could even ask what was wrong, he saw the broken monitor. Mark picked it up, his face a mix of disbelief and sheer terror. The device that was meant to protect us was now just a pile of glass and plastic. I said, "We have to leave." Mark didn't hesitate. He knew. We packed our things that same night and just left. We never went back. That broken monitor sat there, untouched, far from us. Sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I still think I hear a faint whisper. Or maybe it's just my imagination playing tricks on me. But I'll never forget that feeling, that cold dread that washed over me when I heard those words, "You shouldn't have left him alone."